My wife of 19 years told me about her friend setting her up on a blind date. She had a girls' night out with her friend Tanisha. Tanisha set her up, apparently, with a guy that she had slept with a few weeks earlier. Tanisha was hooking up with someone else and set my wife up with the past hookup. My wife went out at 7 p.m. and came home at 3 a.m. The confession came completely out of the blue. She said she was sorry and wanted to work on our marriage, waterworks, and begging for forgiveness. She said that nothing happened between her and the guy because Tanisha had slept with him. She knew agreeing to meet this guy was wrong and going to meet him was even worse. I don't believe that nothing happened, like she is saying. She also said that the guy works at a SOM and makes more money. I think that's why I am the better option. Basically, she was confessing to actively trying to replace me if she could find someone with a better paying job. This post would be much different. Not long after this girl's night out and before the confession, my wife and Tanisha had a total meltdown of their friendship. Suddenly, they went from best friends to Tanisha being a liar and a manipulative, jealous person, according to my wife. I think the confession, or partial confession, was to keep Tanisha from telling me about her sleeping with the guy, gaslighting me on the truth of what really happened by telling me only partially about it. Only enough to look bad, but not the whole ugly truth of what happened. Honestly, I didn't need to be told everything that happened. The holes in the story were too big. Little coincidences that occurred around that time put everything in perfect focus. When she told me about it, I lost all feeling for her. I just went numb and didn't even get angry. I'm done. I'm just working on my exit strategy at this point, getting financials in order, a place to move into, etc. It really sucks that she would be willing to throw away 19 years of marriage with no regard for anything, including our 2 children. Update. She is in full-blown panic mode, recently diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder where her white blood cells are attacking her lungs. This causes asthma attacks that normal medication can't correct. The only drug on the market that controls the condition has a copay of $133,000 after her Medicaid. If I didn't have really good health insurance through my employment, there isn't any possibility of her being able to afford it. She is trying everything to reconcile, even setting up couples counseling. We made it through 2.5 sessions, explaining why she came clean on partial truth and wants to fix things. Counseling went the way I figured it would. Every session was all about everything I had done wrong, including my working 50 hours each week. I had done wrong to make ends meet because she has partial disability and doesn't work. I'm not saying that I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Everything was brought up, including our 2 children. Well, except I was informed that the mention of her date night was off limits. About halfway through the 3rd session, the counselor looked her in the eye and asked, "If you have such a high-power radar to detect what everyone else is doing wrong, point that radar at yourself and tell me what you do wrong." The proverbial hit the fan. My soon-to-be ex-wife started yelling at the counselor and wanted to know why she was attacking her when we were there so she could fix me. After a few minutes of back and forth, my soon-to-be ex-wife stormed out, crying. The counselor told me that my soon-to-be ex-wife has a deep hatred for me and that she doesn't think this marriage can be salvaged. Basically, my response was, yep and nope. I informed the counselor that I appreciated her time and that we wouldn't be back. She offered me individual counseling. I informed her that I probably would in the future and proceeded to tell her about the taboo topic. Needless to say, it didn't surprise her and confirmed her suspicion. The entire trip back to the house was about how much of a quack the therapist was. I've basically been on autopilot when I'm at the house. I refer to it as the house because it isn't a home anymore. I've moved into the spare bedroom. As far as I'm concerned, I may be married, but I no longer have a wife. If she didn't need good medical insurance coverage, she would still be on the hunt. I don't need to track down Tanisha to get the whole story. I live in a small community of less than 900 people. I commute to work in a bigger city daily. While at the only grocery store in the community, guess who I ran into? My soon-to-be ex-wife. It was none other than the blind date guy. Small towns, right? It was bound to happen. I was at the end of the aisle when he walked up to her. He is a small guy, maybe 5'9" and 150 pounds. She had her back to me and didn't realize where I was. He asked her out again, right in front of me. She did decline though. That's when I walked up. I asked her if he was the guy she went out with about 2 months ago. He asked, "What's it to me?" I backed him up against the shelves and told him that I've been her husband for 19 years. I thought he was going to soil himself. I'm 6'2" and 250 pounds and muscular. She tried to get me to back off. I growled at her to shut up. She just better listen. Immediately, she started crying. I asked if he swallowed hard and said yes. She cried harder. I told him to never let me see him again. He apologized for everything and basically ran out of the store. Her affair partner outed her by being in the wrong place at exactly the perfect time. If it hadn't been him, I would have eventually gotten the story. Needless to say, most of the time I'm on autopilot. It's as if all emotion is gone. I have to fake happiness while I'm with my children. I don't know if it is an emotional self-defense mechanism to keep things from falling further apart. I know I should be in some kind of distress over this. One day it's going to hit hard. I no longer trust the things I know to be true. Do my children really love me, or do they love the things I give them? Do my parents? Do they only love the fact that I got good grades in school and never got into trouble? The only thing I'm certain of is I can't stay in this sham of a marriage. I get up, go to work, barely eat or sleep. The only people I've told about this are strangers on the internet. I have no one to talk to about this. I go from one day to the next, pretending I'm normal. Maybe my soon-to-be ex-wife was right. The therapist does need to fix me. Just a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate it. It helps me a lot. Now moving on to our second story. My wife is cheating with my coworker. I'm a 33-year-old male, and my wife is a 30-year-old female. We have been together for 11 years, and I thought everything was good between us until recently. For some context, I work as a dispatcher for truckers, and it's a pretty good job. I get good benefits, and I make enough where we can both be comfortable. My wife had a job building gaming computers, but she lost her job due to cutbacks, so I've been the sole earner. I've been picking up a lot of hours, and one day my car battery died on me, so I had my wife take me to work. When we made it to the parking lot, I saw my coworker Andrew. I waved at him, and he walked over to say hello, and that's when I introduced him to my wife. She got out of the car to shake his hand, and he looked at me and said, "You never told me that your wife was so beautiful." She blushed, and I laughed, not thinking about it, saying, "Yeah, I'm lucky to have her." And then we both walked into work. After I kissed my wife goodbye, I got my car good and running, so I've been going to work like normal. During lunch, I couldn't help but notice my wife's car in the parking lot. So I walked towards it and saw her and Andrew talking and eating lunch in her car. I got upset but kept it cool and knocked on her window. She opened the door and said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you that I and Andrew were having lunch today together." Then Andrew said, "I hope you are not angry." I took a deep breath and said no, and I turned around and walked to the car because if I said anything else, it was going to start an argument. But I can feel my wife getting frustrated because I walked away like that. My wife blew up later that day when I got home. She blew up, saying that I embarrassed her in front of Andrew. I said, "Why do you even care? And when did you even start hanging out with him?" She said, "I am a grown-ass woman, and I don't have to tell you," and then walked off. Since then, she has been distant, and I noticed she's been on her phone more, calling and texting her friends. I just know that it's Andrew, but I don't want to accuse her, then I'm wrong, and I look like an ass. But at the same time, I want to say something. I don't know what to do. Update. I'm going to put a tracker in my wife's car and trail her to see if I can find anything and collect evidence so I don't get screwed if I'm in court, if we do end up divorcing. A part of me doesn't want to do it because I don't know if I can handle the pain. I've been through a lot, and I can't believe she's really going to throw it away this easily, but I'm still going to have to do it. Update number 2. My friend gave me his airdrop, and I hid it in my wife's car and followed her. She told me that she was going to see a friend, but I didn't believe it, so I followed her in my friend's car to make sure she couldn't spot me. After a 20-minute drive, she drove up to a hotel. I'm not gonna lie, I felt sick, and my heart kept pounding. I was really hoping that I was wrong, and she was seeing a friend, but instead, I saw Andrew waving at my wife, and then I saw her running and jumping on this guy and kissing him. I was so hurt and angry. I wanted to get out and beat Andrew's ass and tell my wife to get all of her stuff out of the house, but I didn't. Instead, I took out my phone, took some pictures, and drove off. When I saw them walk into the hotel, I went home and cried, screamed, yelled, and punched a hole in the wall. I called my friend to come over, and I showed him the pictures and started crying again as I screamed, 11 years down the drain! My friend gave me a hug and told me to get a lawyer and to keep stacking up evidence against her. I didn't know if I could keep up the facade anymore, but I told my friend I'd try. So during these past weeks, I've been stacking up evidence and keeping my distance. I've seen them go to restaurants, movies, and hotels, and every time it hurt, but I tough it out. She always told me she was going out with her friends or family, but I never called her. I said okay. I thought I could keep it up for at least a few more days. Especially because the lawyer I'm seeing says that I have more than enough evidence to make sure I win. I think I messed up yesterday. I keep everything when we divorce, but I think I messed up yesterday. My wife didn't even tell me happy birthday, but her parents did. When I went to work, my coworkers got me a cake and some gifts. I tried holding back the tears because for a moment I forgot about everything, at least until I saw Andrew. He got me a gift and I faked a smile and said thank you. When I opened it, it was the comic Batman: Death of the Family. And I was actually surprised because no one at work knew I was into comics, and DC was my favorite. When I told Andrew that, he said my wife told him, and then all I saw was red. Next thing I know, my coworkers are holding me back, and Andrew is in the corner covering his nose and yelling, "What the fuck?" Then I screamed, "I know you've been with my wife." Everyone got silent and looked at Andrew, and he tried explaining it to me, but I didn't care. All I wanted to do was beat his ass until he stopped moving. But then my boss came in and sent Andrew home and took me to his office. I told him everything and showed him some of the pictures. He apologized to me and gave me some time off to sort everything out, and he will deal with Andrew. It really went south when I got home, and my wife was waiting. She blew up on me, saying that I was wrong for doing that to Andrew, and that she talked him out of pressing charges for hitting him. She kept yelling and yelling, saying Andrew makes her feel like a real woman and treats her right and knows how to make her feel special. I finally popped and just yelled, "I don't give a shit." She looked surprised and went silent, and I kept going, saying, "If he makes you feel special, go live with him and have him support you because I'm done." Then she had the nerve to cry and say that she was sorry. She tried saying how Andrew caught her at a moment of weakness, but I just took a deep breath and told her to get a lawyer because we're getting a divorce. She really tried to apologize and said that she couldn't afford one and that we needed to work on ourselves, but I just looked at her and told her to pack up. She kept crying and begging, but I just got her suitcase and called her sister to come pick her up. She locked herself in the bathroom, saying she wouldn't come out until I was willing to work things out with her. I kept telling her that I didn't want to work anything out and that we needed space because when I saw her, I felt angry and hurt. She finally got out and apologized, and then she packed her things and waited outside. Now I'm finally in the house alone, and I can't stop crying. I feel so many things, and I just don't know anymore. Sorry if I was all over the place with my post. I'm just feeling horrible and emotional, but I am planning on seeing a therapist soon. I'll definitely update everyone once all this blows over. I'd like to thank everyone again for the advice and support. This is the last update from the user on this story. There are no further updates as of now. If the user releases an update in the future, I will post it with a part 2, so make sure to subscribe to this channel. Third story, I cheated and cannot forgive myself. Hello everyone, I'm a 20-year-old woman who was in a relationship with a guy whom I thought I would eventually marry. Unfortunately, one night I got drunk and ended up sleeping with someone else. I confessed to my boyfriend, and he rightfully ended the relationship. It's important to note that we were in a long-distance relationship. Despite the breakup, we're still friends, but I understand that getting back together is unlikely due to my betrayal. I was surprised by my own actions because I had been cheated on multiple times before and had always sworn never to do the same. In my freshman year of college, I was involved in hookup culture, which I now deeply regret. Prior to college, I had a boyfriend who cheated on me and subjected me to a traumatic experience, which I never shared with anyone. Reflecting on my actions, I realized that I was never truly happy on my own and hadn't healed from past heartbreaks and betrayals. At present, I'm struggling with overwhelming guilt, shame, and regret. I've turned to reading the Bible, realizing its significance in living a fulfilling life and building successful relationships. I've also started therapy to work through my emotions. While I can't undo my mistakes, I'm committed to personal growth. I feel a deep sense of shame about my past and have decided to remain celibate until I find someone with whom I want to spend my life. My ex and I initially started as friends with benefits, a decision I now recognize as unwise, especially after understanding the power of lust. Despite my mistakes, my ultimate goal is to have a loving and successful family. I wonder if a future partner can forgive me for my past. I've distanced myself from friends who lied and cheated, recognizing the importance of surrounding myself with positive influences. I acknowledge that what I did was wrong. My ex had a history of cheating, which I understand doesn't define someone's character, but I feel it defines me. At the age of 20, I consulted a psychiatrist who ruled out personality disorders, emphasizing the importance of focusing on my health and avoiding alcohol and wheat. My therapist highlighted issues of low self-esteem and impressions that I had long been aware of but never addressed. I am determined to transform into a new and better person, realizing how much I lost myself and my identity through my regrettable actions. Third story. It's been around 7 months since the day of discovery, commonly known as D-Day. Initially, I refrained from sharing my story here, unsure of my reasons for doing so. Now, perhaps it's a need to confide in someone. Regardless, here's my story. I'm a 34-year-old male, and my wife is 30. We've been together for 12 years, married for 5, and have an elementary school-aged child together. To provide some context, I've held a commercial driver's license for a few years. While I did some work with it, I despised the lifestyle of being constantly on the road. Family time and being at home were always more important to me than chasing a paycheck across the country for weeks at a time. Eventually, I found myself in a position to purchase a beautiful semi-truck. Before making this decision, I discussed it extensively with my wife. The primary reason behind my interest in this venture was her plan to return to school full-time. The idea was that by owning the truck, I could supplement our income, allowing her to focus on her education without financial worries. This is where the complications arose. Although she wasn't enthusiastic about the idea, she acknowledged it as our best opportunity to support her education. She understood the significant amount of time I would spend on the road away from home. It was a tough spot for her, managing the household with 3 dogs, an elementary school-aged child, a full-time job, and the daily chores. However, she was aware of all these responsibilities, and we had discussed them before I purchased the truck. Initially, everything seemed fine. When I was home for my brief 34-hour reset, I pitched in with household tasks, caught up on chores, and prepared to leave again. Throughout my time on the road, communication with my wife was a constant effort, adhering to strict rules about phone use while driving an 80,000-pound vehicle. As a commercial driver, safety always took precedence, and texting while behind the wheel was not an option. During stops for loading or unloading, I caught up on messages and engaged in conversation. While away, I had expressed a desire for phone intimacy and more explicit photos, considering our marital connection. Initially, my wife was hesitant about phone intimacy, expressing discomfort with the idea. I respected her boundaries and didn't press the matter. The exchange of explicit photos was infrequent, limited to occasional bathtub selfies. However, a significant shift occurred around April. Suddenly, she began sending a multitude of provocative pictures, wearing sexy outfits, using filters, and posing in peculiar areas of our home, like the basement and living room. The change raised concerns. The pictures were alluring, yet the sudden and random nature seemed odd. I voiced my appreciation for the pictures, but couldn't shake the feeling of unease. I directly asked if these were intended for someone else, and she vehemently reassured me that they were solely for me, emphasizing her love. Despite finding no evidence to the contrary, the situation felt unsettling. Fast forward to my birthday in April, and I took time off the road to celebrate with family. One night, after my wife had gone to bed, I found her asleep with the TV on. Approaching her side of the bed to grab the TV remote from the nightstand, she unexpectedly jolted awake, reaching for her phone. This sudden reaction perplexed me. I had never invaded her privacy before. When questioned, she claimed it was a startled response while half asleep. Still, the incident lingered in my mind, and later, when she was still asleep, I decided to check her phone. Her unusual reaction warranted an explanation, and I needed to understand why.